So no pressure, thank you very much for that introduction. So I'm going to talk you through some of the biggest millennial trends at the moment that is going to reveal State of the Youth Nation. I've got 15 to get through. I've apparently got 15 minutes to get through them and then 5 minutes for questions. So I'm going to try and be as fast as possible so you can ask questions. But there may not be time for questions at the end. I cannot promise, but find me later if you do want to speak to me. So why am I here? Well, I thought I was being really clever with the title of my presentation today. At YouthSight, we have a product called State of the Youth Nation, which is an insight product all about millennials and Gen Z. And so, I'll be sharing some data that we've been collecting to help you sort of understand young people better. And I work for YouthSight, as I've mentioned, an award-winning insight agency. We're based in Shoreditch. And I guess our main remit is to help clients kind of grow within the youth market, but by better understanding young people in particular. So that's our thing. So that was the introduction. I'm going to start with the trends. So apologies if I speak very quickly. So the first one. So the old cool is not the new cool. So I don't know about you, but some of these celebrities here were really popular when I was in my teens and my 20s. What they all kind of have in common is that they're quite rebellious and they're quite anti-establishment. From Madonna to Men Behaving Badly, they were all kind of quite rebellious. But if you think about young people today, that's not how they rebel. This is not how young people are. Young people are really quite cautious, they're quite responsible. And if they are going to rebel, it's kind of, they're being irreverent about the times that they're living in, because they're living at a time when they're growing up with what I call the social experiment of social media. We don't really know what's going to happen at the end of that, but for them, they're not as kind of rock and roll as maybe young people in the past. So if sort of young people are not cool anymore, the cool isn't the same, we sort of thought at YouthSight, why don't we ask young people what cool actually means to them? If we thought cool meant sort of going out and sort of having late night parties, what do young people think? So we've got the largest panel of young people in the country to use when you're doing market research. So we went out to them and asked them, what is it that you think cool means?
Cool is just like a generic word that you would use in describing basically anything. It's the most applicable piece of slang in the world.
To be honest with you, myself and my friends don't use the word cool that much.
You can really spice up the way you speak by avoiding the word cool, even though it tends to be quite a useful word to use.
Other people though would probably most likely use cool nowadays to be more like, yep, that's alright. Because they're not really bothered, or just something for them to say because they don't know what to say.
You also use it quite ironically a lot of the time, so it's like, cool.
Me and my mates only use the word cool when we're being sarcastic. Like, for example, when they're just saying something and we don't really care, we're just like, cool, cool.
I think cool has turned into more of an insult now than a compliment. And so to use the word cool is actually quite uncool.
So I don't know about you, but I felt pretty old when I heard that. But there you go. But so if you can believe that cool is uncool, well, why not believe that food is the new rock and roll to young people? Well, why not? Let's suspend reality for a moment. Young people have been found in the UK to spend more on food than any other generation. And that's mainly fueled by eating out and takeaways. And I guess if you sort of read the press in America, they're saying that we're currently in what they call a gastronomic youthquake. So if you think things like food trucks, the cronut from a while ago, think about the unicorn drink that was in Starbucks at the summer, there's just so much innovation in the world of food at the moment that's really capturing the imagination of young people. And so if food is the new rock and roll, well then food tribes are now replacing music tribes. And I've got 4 to introduce to you now. So You've got the craft beer nerds, so they kind of reject the mainstream breweries and they covet kind of independent microbreweries. Then you've got the clean eaters, so that's like Deliciously Ella, and they like unprocessed and unrefined food. Then you've got the vegans, very popular with millennials at the moment, so they refrain from any animal products. And then my favourite, the protein gym bros, who apply a hacker ethos to their sort of body and exercise and apply the same ethos to the food that they eat. But we shouldn't really forget that these millennials grew up during the recession. And so for them, it's not about sort of the bling of the 90s and the noughties. For them, they didn't necessarily have as many things. So now experience is the new status symbol for young people. You may or you may not have seen this meme. It's very, very popular. Pics or it didn't happen. So this relates to young people using social media to share the experiences that they're having in the real world with everybody else who's potentially not participating in it with them because they're trying to get status for doing something unique. We spoke to our young people on our panel, and our State of the Youth Nation data shows that 2 out of 3 16 to 25-year-olds would prefer to receive an experience over a gift. So this is valuing the things that they do, the things that they see, the places that they go, over the latest trainers or a new bag. And this very much relates to travel, because if experience is the new status symbol, young people really want to travel. And top of their bucket list, along with being a millionaire, they still want to be millionaires, but top of their bucket list is also to travel to every continent. And at YouthSight, we talk about travel being like a new life stage for young people. It's never been easier to be able to travel the world, but it's also at a time when young people have been shut out of the trappings of adulthood. You know, they're probably living at home, they're trying to be independent, so why not spend their money on creating memories for themselves? And it kind of delivers that kind of instant gratification, similar to food that I was talking about earlier, that kind of very Instagrammable image and that kind of sharing and getting the status back that young people do crave now that they have social media. And so if experience is a new status symbol, it's kind of unsurprising that brands have got sort of onto this bandwagon, and experiential marketing is extremely big in the youth market at the moment. So this is where brands want to either sponsor or, even better, to kind of organise events and sort of bring the fun to young people. So here are some examples. So you've got the House of Peroni, which has, I think, just started in Shoreditch near our offices. Your House of Vans. You've got the Copperberg Urban Forest Festival that happened a couple of years ago. And they're very interesting, but what I think is most interesting are these kind of metrics that you get back from them. So 81% of people who go to these events have shared a photo while they're there. 71% have used the hashtag of that particular event, and 67%, which is probably the most interesting one, follow the brand after the event, so you can keep that communication going. So it's really impressive, the numbers that they're delivering. But another aspect of growing up, I guess, in a kind of very modern digital age is that you've got things like Spotify and Netflix. So access is now more important than ownership for young people, but what that actually means is that they have less stuff. So this is a bookshelf from 15 years ago, typical teenager's room. So you see you've got TV shows, you've got films, you've got music, you've got books and magazines, just lots and lots of stuff. If you looked at the same sort of bookshelf now, it would look like this. So there are no CDs or DVDs or books, but you've got lots of ornaments and you've got lots of plants. And millennials really love plants. Just if you're going to take one thing away, millennials love plants. But everything that we used to have when we were young is definitely in their devices. And so for young people, there isn't very much that you can see necessarily when you go into their rooms that tells you that much about who they are. Which leads me on to my next trend, which is that stuff needs to mean something. So this is an emerging trend, but it's with young people wanting to really own things that actually matter to them, sort of a response to the kind of disposable culture that we have been living in. I guess the most obvious example of stuff meaning something is the rebirth of vinyl. It's the platform that everybody thought was dead, come back to life. And I don't necessarily see it as a retro trend. I know lots of people are talking about it as a retro trend, but I really see this as young people wanting to own something tangible from the kind of bands and artists that they love. So they want their passions to be in their life rather than to access their passions on their devices. So they're wanting to own tangible things. They might want to put the artwork on the wall. So things that will give them a little bit more identity than what they actually have at the moment. So if stuff means something now, well, brands have to mean something as well. So for young people, the tell sell doesn't work. You can't just tell a young person to buy your product anymore because it's good, because they just don't believe you. They want to have brands that have a story and a purpose behind them, and they want a brand to make an emotional connection with them. I work in youth research, so of course I'm going to be referencing Simon Sinek, whose interview on YouTube last year almost broke the internet. If you haven't seen it, really interesting take on millennials. But he did say that people don't buy what you do, they buy what you... I was waved at the back there to tell me I had to hurry up, and I've lost my train of thought. Let's carry on. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So Unilever very much taken this on board, so all of their brands now have a story behind them. Tom's with their One for One campaign, you buy shoes here, they donate shoes in developing countries. And Outdoor Voices, which is a kind of hiking kind of equipment store, they give 20% of their money to WWF because they want to enjoy nature as it was intended. But this might seem all like hot air, but what we found in our State of the Youth Nation data is nearly a quarter of young people have boycotted a brand in the past. So they're not shy about using their money to try and encourage social good. I couldn't sort of talk about young people without mentioning social media and our take on it. This is a representation of where the 4 social media platforms sit in the UK today with young people. So Facebook is still king, but if you're thinking about the number of posts that young people do, that is Snapchat with their streaks functionality. And when we talk to clients, we like to sort of explain to them the context that you need to be sort of thinking about each of these platforms to put your messaging in the right place. So you've got the living room, which is Facebook. So this is where you can go and you can relax, but you have to be on your best behavior because your parents are also in the room. You've got Instagram, which is the common room. So this is where you're with your friends, you're hanging out, but also everyone you know is there, so you have to look good at all times. Then you've got Snapchat, which is where you're with your closest friends in your bedroom being silly. And then, of course, you've got Twitter, which is all about sort of finding out what's going on in the world. But I'd probably argue that social media is quite yesterday, and we're now living in a messaging age. So these are the top 4 social messaging apps. So Facebook, Messenger, WeChat, Viber, and WhatsApp. I've recently found out that there are more people in the world using these 4 apps than there are using Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter combined. And once I heard that, I realized that we needed to start taking messaging really seriously. Ofcom nicely did a nice calculation for us, so shout out to them. And they said, so you could watch the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended versions, including all of the credits, so 726 minutes, and still not spend as long as the average young person does on instant messaging in a week. Gogglebox culture has just got cool. So yes, social media is yesterday, messaging is now, live streaming is the future. So this year we saw Facebook Live and Instagram Live come into our lives. This is where you can broadcast to your followers, and luckily Facebook and Instagram think that that's a great thing, and you can reach more of your followers because of their algorithm. I guess the most famous live stream this year was the one of the giraffe giving birth. But Also, since launching, Facebook said at some point 1 in 5 of their videos were actually all live streaming. But it's not just those two social media giants. Snapchat's also in on the game, but they have created Snapchat spectacles. So this is perfect for millennials who, it's combining wearable tech with fashion. You can really see through the eyes of the beholder by just tapping on the side of the glasses. You can record 10, 60 seconds of your life and then broadcast it to your followers. So things are really changing in this sphere. And not only social media, but earlier the robots were coming. I'm now telling you that the bots are coming. So what I mean by this, are kind of intelligent programs that can solve your problems. 67% of millennials say that they would prefer to talk to a customer service chatbot than to a person. So this is quite interesting because this isn't just about young people not really wanting to be on the phone. I think we all know that they don't like to talk on the phone at all. But it's interesting that it's taking human beings out of the equation altogether. And so the future is going to be quite interesting in that area, I think. But what about people and humans? So who do they actually trust, especially with trust at an all-time low, fake news? Well, it's kind of the everyday celebrity. So here we've got, from our State of the Youth Nation data, the celebrities young people look up to. So you've got Stephen Fry, who is really open about his mental health, his sexuality, and is thought to be really wise. You've got Adele, a very down-to-earth sort of person, but also extremely talented singer. David Beckham, also talented footballer, but more for young people. They know him as a family man. And then you've got Emma Watson, who is a principled actor who likes to speak out about things that she feels quite passionately about. So looking at these kind of 4 celebrities that young people look up to, it is all about having a conscience. It's about being relatable, and it's also about having great talent, so being really good at what you do. So these are the qualities that young people look up to, whether that be in a celebrity or, dare I say it, in a brand. I'm at my final trend now, so I'm at number 15. And I guess I want to talk a little bit about micro-influencers. And I'm sure you all have heard at least of Zoella. She is the most famous influencer in the UK at the moment. But she has millions and millions of people following her. What we're seeing in youth marketing in particular, it's all about the micro-influencers at the moment. So micro-influencers have under 5,000 people following them at the moment. So they're very niche. They're very all about sort of their particular topic. They're everyday people talking about their real lives. And people who follow them have this really deep connection because they feel they're genuinely really similar to that person that they're watching. This deep connection is something that brands are now kind of cottoning on to because they say that 70% of people want to learn about a product through content and not through advertising. So brands are sending their products to these micro-influencers to review and to do honest reviews. This isn't sort of about gaming the system. But if those micro-influencers who have that real dialogue, not just a broadcast dialogue, a real dialogue with young people, and if they do recommend or even tell someone about their product, that's upping your awareness, that's upping your recommendation. And it's a bit like a sort of real word of mouth. To give you a real-life example of this, so this is a blogger, so Aurelie Charnos. She is a fashion blogger, and last year she just did one Snapchat post. It was just one, just talking about this particular face gel. And within 24 hours, if you can see, $17,000 worth of the product had been sold with no other marketing involved at all. So influencers and micro-influencers are really sort of here to stay. They are the new celebrities, and they're definitely something for you to consider in your marketing mix. So I think I've done it. A few more things just to say sort of thank you. So State of the Youth Nation, a lot of the data I've shared with you today is from that. Please find me later if you want to talk to me about that or how we've helped some of these brands here. And also, I guess, if it's a shameless plug, but if you've not heard enough of me today, I was on the radio. I don't know why they asked me to be on the radio, but they did. I went on there, and if you want to have a listen to The Bottom Line on Radio 4, I'm talking about the youth market there. Thank you very much.